But the other week I told you how the Snowy 2.0 pumped hydro project is running way over time and over budget. It'll cost maybe $12 billion now instead of the promised $2 billion, and it's years away from completion, even though it was supposed to be finished by now. I showed you how one of its tunnel borers is stuck. The ground has collapsed above it. What a shambles. Listen to how the Climate and Energy Minister reacted to this problem, though, yesterday.
Well, I won't be down there with a shovel myself. What I will be doing is working very closely with Snowy Management, which is what I've been doing.
Remember how these people used to go on about Scott Morrison not holding a hose? Was that Blackout Bowen's I don't hold a shovel moment? It just goes to show, though, doesn't it, how it's easy to talk about getting to net zero by 2050, but it's a hell of another thing to get there. That's why the International Energy Agency says it's impossible with current technology. And my next guest has crunched the numbers on just how implausible the switch to renewables and electric vehicles will be. Associate Professor Simon Michaux is a mining engineer from the Geological Survey of Finland. He joins me from Helsinki. Good to talk to you again, Professor. Tell us, the numbers you quote from your research are just astounding. First up, how many cars will we need to replace with electric vehicles by 2050?
Right, that's an interesting question. See, it depends on, are we going to replace the existing system or not? If we were, there is 1.4 billion vehicles estimated in the 2018 vehicle fleet. Right, so if we were to replace all them, now I'm proposing some of them will be hydrogen fuel cells and some of them will be electric vehicles. And I was proposing all the heavy vehicles will have to be hydrogen fuel cell. We're talking billions.
Billions.
Certainly hundreds of millions. Yeah.
And tell us then, how many more minerals are used in an electric vehicle compared to a conventional vehicle?
So to build a conventional ICE vehicle, you've got mostly steel, a bit of magnesium, a bit of copper and aluminium. But if you're going to build an EV, for example, electric vehicle, so you've got mostly aluminium, a lot less steel, but now you've got lithium, you've got cobalt, you've got nickel, you've got rare earths, and all of these things are relatively exotic compared to how we mine at the moment. We do mine these things, but they're in much smaller volumes. They're trace elements compared to things like magnesium, but now we want to mine them at rates of, like, say, copper and steel. And that's where the trouble starts.
And we need to actually mine them at quantities we don't have yet. We don't have as reserves. I'm going to put up one of the slides from your latest presentation here. And if we see on this graph, you see the red bar graphs show how much is required to get to 2050 net zero. And next to it, you've got various colours showing known reserves and possible extra reserves on land and under the water. And when it comes to copper, we need far more copper than we even know there is now. Lithium, dramatically more lithium than we actually know exists now. Is it actually possible to find and extract the minerals here that are required?
So not quite. That graph, the red column, is to replace the system as it is now completely. Like, all existing systems are now non-fossil fuels. The original work was to be done by 2030. Now they're saying net zero by 2050, so presumably it might do half of it. Yeah, so to answer your question, I don't believe it is possible without some drastic change in what we think we're doing. I mean, we don't have the time, we don't have the capital, and the resources just aren't there. And so no, we're not going to be able to do it. We're not going to be able to hit the targets as they are now.
Are you saying there actually is not the copper, the lithium, the nickel, the cobalt, it's just not there? Forget about whether we can mine it or not, but whether or not it's actually there.
You have to remember, the world is made of minerals. The entire Andes mountain range is one giant copper deposit that's really, really low grade. There is metals and seawater. So it's not a question of running out of copper. It's a question of our ability to extract that copper in a form that is useful. And that's where the trouble starts.
And at the moment, you would rate the chances of being able to do that by 2050 as impossible?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, we're not going to be able to do it.
Thanks for talking to us, Professor. I appreciate it. We'll keep in touch. That's Associate Professor Simon Michaux there in Finland. The numbers on this are astounding, and we'll keep looking at it because you're being sold a pup. People are telling you we can just do this, batten down the hatches, we can do it. We can't. And the other side of this, of course, is the expense.